What's good? What's good? Shalom, shalom. I know y'all see the title, right? Countdown to World War III. You know the watch, right? The watch, right? Yeah, we continuing on. We be checking in and out on this on these current events and this ongoing war stuff that's going on, and seeing how close we are to this whole thing escalating, right? So yeah, we're gonna get into a couple prophecies concerning it, and looking at the geopolitics and how crazy things is, with how things is being ran and all that. Got a couple little articles or whatever, right? Couple little articles and stuff that we can just look at real quick. Like I said, things is ramping up, right? And China, Taiwan, and all that cool stuff. Russia and the Crimea, Ukraine, America. North Korea, America. So it's China, America. Everything, right? So yeah, this is from Newsweek. It says the UK updating contingency plans for potential Russian attack on NATO countries. So they looking at how Russia is moving and stuff. They like, man, we gotta upgrade our contingency plan on if Russia attack, right? Because cause they neighbors with Russia, and it's like they right next door. So they like, man, Russia is doing their thing. It don't look like they gonna stop. And if they get Ukraine, they coming for the rest of Europe. That's how they looking at it. And it says NATO warns of possible Russian aggression within 5 years, especially if alliances appear divided, right? And that's the key part. Especially if alliances appear divided, right? And that's why I title it this way: Can Satan cast out Satan, right? Because what did Christ say? Like, if Satan be against Satan, then the house can't stand. Then they against each other, right? So, and that's how America is going to be taken down, from the inward fighting from each other, and then their inward fighting with their allies through NATO and the EU. So Satan divided amongst itself is going to take out itself, just like Jesus said, right? So it says UK simulate Russian attack, revealing significant weakness in current defense capabilities, right? And that's very interesting, because we know Bible prophecy says that Russia is going to do what they want to do when it's time to do it. And there's nothing is going to stop them. It says when they push that button, every arrow is going to hit its mark. That's what Bible prophecy says. And it says in the UK is looking at their missile defense capabilities, and they like, man, we over here lacking. And it says the UK is considering new defense systems, including potential Iron Dome variant for missile protection, right? They're trying to get that Iron Dome like Israel got over there. They say that the Iron Dome is capable of knocking down what they say, like 95% of projectiles coming in. That's what they say. The Iron Dome, right? So they're trying to get something similar to that, right? Let's get it. Some other stuff, and so they looking for some aid. So now this is Mike Pence, former vice president of of this thing. It says Pence criticized Trump Russia Ukraine stance, says Putin doesn't want peace. And he like Putin don't want peace. So, you got some war hawks out there that, want to see war. And so Putin's already said that he's willing to, come to a deal or whatever, but America and everybody else keep gaslighting and Ukraine and giving them more money and making them think that they got a chance. Then it says, former vice president urges strong U.S. support for Ukraine against Russian aggression. Pence warned of consequences of Putin's success in Ukraine, including potential NATO conflict, right? So now you have, like I said, you see the division, right? And this guy is a Republican. And so, he was Trump, former vice president and all that. And so now, Trump, he's against the war, right? He's on record talking about he want to stop the war. But this guy is saying that, they should support Ukraine, right, all the way. And fears that if they don't, it can cause a NATO conflict, which, if it's a NATO conflict, that is World War III, right? Because NATO got that clause, how we say in the streets, if one fight, we all fight, right? So, if one of the NATO countries get involved, then it's up, So then it says he criticized Trump tariffs and pardons for Capitol rioters. Comments follow Pence receiving JFK profile, encouraged the war for January 6th action. And it says, this is from the Jerusalem Post, and it says, after Ukraine attack on Kursk, Russia has warned the West world that should World War III begin, they would not be confined to Europe borders, right? So Russia, look, if World War III kicks off today, don't think it's gonna be in Europe. It ain't gonna be like World War I and World War II. It's not gonna be because even World War II kind of left Europe, because it's over in Asia. It was in North Africa, South Pacific, Europe. First World War, the first war was, all in Europe. So Putin, Russia has warned the Western world that should World War III begin, they would not be confined to Europe borders. And that's talking spicy, if you understand, what he's talking about. Because they got these intercontinental missiles that can come from Russia all the way to the United States within 30 to 45 minutes, right? And hit anywhere that they want to hit, right? So they got missile capability to strike America. And that's another reason why America is so hesitant to go head up with them. They keep trying to feed money to Ukraine, hoping that they can somewhat weaken them. But it ain't gonna happen, right? And it says Russia said the West was playing with fire by considering allowing Ukraine to strike deep into Russia with Western missiles, and cautioned the United States on Tuesday that World War III would not be confined to Europe. So they keep playing with the real poo shiesty, right? That's what they're doing over here. America is playing with the real poo shiesty. It started with Biden, and they're playing with the man because he told them, if y'all give Ukraine American weapons like missiles and stuff like that to hit Russia, we will push the button. That's what he said. He said that. And they keep poking the bear, you know, and thinking that Putin ain't the real Pooh Shiesty. But this is like probably since this war started. He been saying this over and over again. Like if y'all, it's cool. Y'all give them all the money y'all want. We ain't cool with y'all giving Ukraine all the money and weapons. And giving them all that money and weapons and all that. But if you start giving them missiles that can hit our country, we pushing the button. You know what I'm saying? Basically, we pulling out the nukes. That's what he said. So he said, Russia said the West was playing with fire by considering allowing Ukraine to strike deep into Russia with Western missiles, and cautioned the United States on Tuesday that World War III would not be confined to Europe. Ukraine attacked Russia's western Turk region on August 6th and has carved out a slice of territory in the biggest region. Then it says, yeah, in the biggest they carved out a territory in the biggest foreign attack on Russia since World War II. President Vladimir Putin said there would be a worthy response from Russia to the attack. So Putin, like, the damage that y'all done caused, on August 6th, that's like, we haven't seen that much damage in our country since World War II. He like, so, like, it's consequences coming with that, right? And it says, so like, U.S., they mess with the Philippines and the South Korean people, right? So they doing military drills in the South Pacific. And this article says the U.S. Philippine Balkanton military exercise planned warship sinking canceled as the ship sunk prematurely. Largest annual exercise involves 14,000 troops from the U.S., Philippines, Australia, and Japan. Drills held amid tension with China over maritime claims of Taiwan. Exercise aims to boost intolerable irreparability amongst allies forces in the region. Other live-fired elements continue. China criticized the joint exercises. So China, so basically, America, Japan, Philippines, they doing military exercises basically in China's backyard. And typically, usually, when countries do military exercises, next to their enemy, they're either trying to provoke them, or they, they're getting ready for a war, right? And they know that a war is coming. So, and China knows those two outcomes. Like, either you trying to get us to react because y'all, kind of close to us, or y'all planning on attacking us, right? So that's how they looking at it. I think there was one more. One more. Okay, yeah. It says Russia grows stronger military, aiming for 1.5 million troops, while Ukraine struggles to maintain frontline numbers. So, Russia, I was saying this the whole time. When this war first kicked off, I'm like, Russia is fighting Ukraine with their C team, right? They don't even got their B team or their A team out there in the fight. Their B and A team, they're doing military drills with China and India. They're training for the real fight for America and them people, right? So it says, so and Russia has, I believe, I gotta, I should look it up. But I believe Russia has the fourth biggest military, either the third or fourth biggest military, right? And then it says they're aiming for 1.5 million troops while Ukraine struggles to maintain their frontline numbers. So Ukraine is getting a butt kicked, basically. So Ukraine can't even maintain their front line, let alone muster up extra reserves and troops to, how they say in sports, to sub in, right? And it says Ukraine innovations in defense, but faces challenges with resources and international support, because America, especially with Trump in office, I think they just signed a deal. So Trump was like, all right, well, give us some of these resources you got over here, then we start sending you some money again. Then you have that situation that you have some countries, it's like, all right, look, you getting us all tied up, because this war is not ending. So it says Ukraine said, but facing challenges with resources and international support. North Korea actively supports Russia with troops, confirming its involvement in the conflict. Because North Korea is about that. North Korea is that friend that you want with you whenever stuff go down. Because North Korea is the one that's going to hit the person first, and they're not even involved in the conversation, but they come and swinging. They that type of person. So North Korea actively supports Russia with troops, confirming its involvement in the conflict. U.S. and European support for Ukraine remains uncertain, limiting the strategic options. Russia may test NATO resolve, potentially expanding the conflict beyond Ukraine borders. So that's their fear that Russia going to keep pushing it, right? Because they really don't want to fight Russia and the BRICS, right? Because they outman, right? And and they got more missiles, right? And it's a losing battle, right? So they really don't want to take it there, but if they take it there, they hoping they can weaken Russia enough so when they do fight Russia, they can have somewhat of a chance, right? It says Chinese research ships detected near the U.S. Philippines military exercise raises concern about its purpose. Ships present occurred in mid-China Philippines tension over South China Sea territorial claims. Philippines dispatched Coast Guard ship to intercept U.S. deployed ships killing missile systems for drills. Chinese vessels has dual use capabilities, potentially gathering intelligence for military purposes. Other Chinese naval forces observe near exercise areas, including aircraft carriers and warships. So China, they watching their back, right? They patrolling their waters. We read earlier about how the U.S. and the Philippines, they doing a little joint military exercise. So, China like, look, this is still our water, right? So it's tension. So now you got America, mad at China because they rolling their navy around. And then we just read that China was mad at them because, they all, doing military drills in their backyard, essentially. So you see the tension, the military tension growing, right? Then it says Trump claims the U.S. had the biggest role in the U.S. Trump claims the U.S. had the biggest role in World War II victory. Russian Medvedev called Trump's statement pretentious nonsense, right? And which, if anybody do know the history of World War II, anybody knows that the Russians lost the most people, and they did majority of the work in World War II. Just that America and England take the credit, but Russia did all the legwork. So that's kind of what started the tension, you know, what brought us to the Cold War and to the point where we are now. Even though like they had a little somewhat beef between that, but when America and Britain just basically just used Russia, as a stepchild to do everything, and then they just came up and cleaned up and took the victory, Russia felt some type of way. And they lost the most people, Then it says, disputes occurs amidst attempts to reset U.S.-Russia relations. Medvedev assert May 9th as Russia Victory Day. So, got him a little holiday thing going on. Okay, cool. Read that. Okay, we read that. Oh, and this one too. So it says, Hawk Bank appeals to the U.S. Supreme Court over Iran sanctions evading persecution, right? So again, going back to this kingdom, this empire being split and divided, and not being on one accord. So you have this this country that's supposed to be putting sanctions on Iran, but they like, no, we need that money, America. We can't do that. So it says, Hawk Bank appeals to the U.S. Supreme Court over Iran sanctions, evasion, persecution. Bank accused of helping Iran transfer $20 billion converted oil revenue and documented fake shipments. So there's this, money laundering for Iran. And they supposed to be with NATO and, the EU. But, they in that country. So it's like, you have the inward fighting. So you have the, they like, well, shoot, that, that like 20 billion is 20 billion, so we need that, right? So it says, case has strained the U.S.-Turkey relations. Egron called it unlawful, and ugly. Supreme Court previously ruled on case in 2003, leading to the second circuit review. A recent call between Egron and Trump suggests potential improvement relations, right? So they like, look, man, we want to be able to do business with Iran. I know y'all beefing and all that. I know we all supposed to be beefing with Iran, but Iran got some good money over there. We want to be able to do business with it. So he's trying to work out a deal with, the U.S. to seek, and they like hold up on that. So you have dissension, right? You have the splinter stuff going on, right? And it ain't gonna last, right? So let's see what the Bible say about all this, right? We're gonna start in Daniel, right? Breaking down the statue, and so let's start at we'll start at 32. Daniel 2 and 32. See. So it says, so that's Daniel 2 and 32. Hold on 1 second. Mm-hmm. Oh, this first. Okay, now my bad. I was looking at something. Okay, but yeah, second chapter of Daniel, and it reads. It says, so this is Daniel talking to King Nebuchadnezzar, right? You know, it's about the dream and breaking down the statue. We're getting into the future governments that's going to be ruling, coming to power, right? We don't need that. So yeah, so it says his image head was of fine gold. This image head was of fine gold. His breast and his arms of silver, and his belly of thighs of brass. Right, and so so Daniel is explaining the statue that that he sees, and so like I said, these different metals that's on the statue, the gold, the brass, the silver, all that, represent different empires throughout the ages, right? All the way up until the final empire, until the time that Christ come back and establish, his order, right? So this is second Ezra 6:9. It says, "For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followed. The hand of men is betwixt of the heel of the hand." Right? So, what does this mean? Jacob is it says, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning that follows, right? Meaning, when this so-called world and this age end, Esau, the Edomites, the so-called Caucasians, the so-called white man, their empire will be in power. That will be the last empire on earth that's ruling in this generation, on this side of the whole thing. So they are the last. Then it says, Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. So the new world to come, right? When you read into Revelation, it says, "I seen a new earth and I seen a new heaven," right? It's not a literal new earth and a new heaven. It means it's a new change of guard, right? It's a new order of business. It's a new manager in town, right? How to say the restaurant is under new management, right? That's what it's talking about. So, and that's going to be under the government of Yahweh Shai, who the world calls Christ, with the Israelites being the top hegemony and ruling the rest of the planet with Yahweh as our God, right? So it says, "For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follows, and the hand of men is betwixt the heel and the hand." So meaning, the Israelites and the Edomites, they are the main characters of this story, right? It always been black and white. Everybody say, why it always gotta be black and white? The Bible made it black and white. Jacob and Esau, right? That's the protagonist and the antagonist, right? Jacob, the hero; Esau, the villain, right? So it says, the hand of man is betwixt of the heel of the hand, right? Meaning, outside of those two nations, the Israelites and the Edomites, all these other nations that come and go into power and rule, they're going to have their time to rule and You know, they're gonna be great. You know, they're gonna do cool stuff. You know, the Egyptians was pretty cool when they did what they did. The Babylonians, the Chinese people, the Japanese, everybody did their thing when they did their thing. You know what I'm saying? You know, what was the Frank Sinatra? I did it my way, right? They all did it their way, right? Right now we living in a society where Esau, the so-called white man, the so-called Caucasian, he's doing it his way, right? And the Bible says, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. The hand of man is betwixt of the hill and the hand. So meaning all these other nations, they're there too. They're in the mix. You know, they're gonna have their time to shine. They're in the rule, in the mix of it. But the bottom line is Jacob and Esau. And Esau is the final empire ruling kingdom on the planet before Christ come back, right? And it says, and the hand of man is betwixt of the hill, and the other questions Ezra asks, thou not, right? So that's why we read this. Well, we didn't read we didn't read it yet, but we're going to read it. But to show you how these different empires came into rulership, right? And that would be the hand that is, what it says, the hand of man that is betwixt the hill. So that would be the hand of man, meaning the other nations, you know, that represents the other, you know, people, right? But then after that, like I said, Jacob is the beginning of the world that follows. So it says, it's 7 and 6 real quick. And it says, after this I behold, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl, and a beast of also 4 heads, and dominion was given unto it. Right? So it's talking about Alexander, right, and his 4 generals, right? And how they, you know, separated the known world amongst themselves and ruled it respectively, you know, after Alexander died, right? So this is history. So it says, his legs of iron and his feet part clay. So this is the Roman Empire, because that's the iron, the thighs of the statue was the Roman Empire. So it says, and thou sawest that a stone that was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet, that were iron and clay, and break them to pieces, right? Let's get Psalms 118 real quick. And 22. So Psalms 118 and 22 says, the stone which the builders refused is become the headstone of the corner. This is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes, right? So, and that's what we're reading here. This is the stone right here. It says, and thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet, that were iron and clay, and break them into pieces, right? So over here it says, the stone which the builders refused become the headstone of the corner. So we all know, you know, that in Psalms 111, 118, this is Christ, that stone that is the rebuilders, that the builders refused. Then we see that same stone over here destroying this final empire. So it says, so the same stone that the builders refused, because it says, the stone which the builders refused became a headstone of the corner. So the same stone that the builders refused, it says, which smote the image upon the feet, that there were iron and clay, and break them in pieces. Right? And it says the iron was, then was the iron, the clay, and the brass, and the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them, and the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Right? Because once Christ set up his government, Israel's going to become that great nation and dominate the whole earth, like it says in Deuteronomy 28, right? And 1. So, it says, any more on that? Nope. Let me see, boom. Let's get a second address, 15 and 4, real quick. Says, second Ezra 15 and 4 says, for all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. Behold, said the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction. For wickedness have exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled. Right? So, like I said, that's why he's destroying these kingdoms. That's why he's taking this place out, because all of the wickedness that they done on this earth and to his people, right? Just go on, let's go. So this is the dream. Let's jump down to 41. So it says, and whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. But there shall be in the strength of the iron, for much as thou in the iron mixed with clay, as the toes of the feet were part iron and part clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Like we were reading in the articles about how they can't agree on if they want to put sanctions on Russia, or I mean not Russia, on Ukraine or not, right? Not Ukraine, Iran. The bank, trying to transfer the money. Like, so you have different dissensions going on. You have Trump trying to get Greenland because he, it's a lot of crazy stuff. The China stuff, everything, right? So you have splits. Then you have either, even inner fighting within the party, right? Even within the country, you have the Republicans and the Democrats going against each other, right? And it's this dissension, it's a split, right? So it says, whereas thou saw the feet and the toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but shall be in the strength of the iron, more much as thou sawest the iron mixed with myrrh and clay. So they're going to be divided because politically they don't see eye to eye, because they have to vote on everything. They have to, agree on everything, to get, certain things passed. But what makes them stronger is because they have a strong military, They have the best military, the biggest military, around, that reaches worldwide, right? So they're strong in that aspect. But it says, as the toes of the feet were part iron and part clay, so as the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. So that's why you can have Turkey, that's supposedly be a part of the EU, but they're on schedule to join the BRICS. And then not only are they on schedule to team up with the BRICS, they're still buying oil from getting oil from Iran and helping Iran laundry their money, right? So it's a dissension, right? And Turkey is an Islamic country, even though Turkey is a so-called European country, but they practice Islam over there. They're not like the other European countries that's so-called Christian countries. They are Islamic over there, right? And so yeah, it's the distinction. So it says get Revelation real quick. So it says and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and thou shalt make her desolate and naked, and eat her flesh. Right? So it's gonna come upon a time where these other nations is gonna come to a point where they hate this place. You know, they're gonna want to really fight and burn this, you know, place up. Hold on 1 second. Turn on this fan. Oh shoot, hold on. Yeah. So yeah, they're gonna want to really fight, right? And you know, cause they tired of, you know, what these people are doing over here, right? A lot of these countries is fed up with the politics of, you know, America and what they've been doing, the wishy-washiness and all that stuff, right? So it says and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. And how they gonna do that? With nuclear war. That's how they gonna do that. That's how they gonna burn her with fire. So then it says back over here, then it says, whereas thou saw the iron mixed with myrrh and clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they should not cleave to one another. Again, so that's another split. So even the people, even though like America is supposed to be this big old melting pot where everybody is everybody, and you know, and it's all cool, but it ain't all cool. Cause you have something called racism, right? You have something called hatred and all this other stuff, right? So America whole equality, land of the free, home of the brave, you know, golden city. It's a concept. It's not a real thing, right? And sadly, a lot of people fell for the concept or the dream, right? But it's not a real thing because it says, and whereas thou saw the iron mixed with myrrh and clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave to one another. Meaning it's going to be dissension amongst the people. Nobody's going to get along with everybody. It's, you know, look around, you know, everybody fighting about everything that they want to fight about, right? And that's what they do. You know, it's always something that people are looking to be divided about. And that's what they're looking to do. Looking to be divided and about stuff. And that's what they do. And so it's always a dissension. And then so it says it says in the boom boom boom. It says, yeah, okay, but they should not cleave to one another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. So yeah, so the people is not gonna be, you know, how Bob Marley say, one love, one heart, let's get together and feel alright. So ain't none of that going on, right? So because iron doesn't mix with clay, right? Then it says, and in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. Talking about the kingdom of God, the Israelites. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever, right? Forever, right? Because once the Israelites coming through power, once Christ is ruling on this planet, it ain't gonna be no, oh well, let's go conquer these people. Let's go, you know, it ain't gonna be no, all right, well, this nation's on top. Then now this nation's on top. No, we're gonna rule forever, ever, forever, ever, right? So we ain't gonna give it up, right? So it's just gonna be like that, right? So that's what it means by it's not gonna be given to other people. Meaning, like how we was talking earlier about how every nation had their time to rule, right? So, and when we was going into Jacob being the beginning of the new world, Esau being the ending of this world, and Jacob being the beginning of the new. So every nation had their time to rule, right? So that's why it's not going to be given to no other people, because it's going to be our time to rule, right? And it's going to be forever, ever, forever, ever. I like saying that. So then it says, for much as thou sawest that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it break in pieces the iron and brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God have made known the king what shall come to pass hereafter, and the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof is sure. You're damn right it is, right? It's sure, because we live in it. We see it. We can look at history and see that all these nations that Daniel prophesied to come into power and do what they did it. They came and they went. So now we in this final empire called Babylon, Mystery Babylon, and they next to come and go, right? Let's get let's go to Isaiah real quick. I think I went. Which one do I want? Okay, yeah. Let's start here. So, Isaiah 13 and 6, right? It says, hallow ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as destruction from the Almighty, right? And that's what it is. The day of the Lord is at hand, right? And it's not going to be a pleasant day where, people see God coming back on some little fluffy cloud, and he got a little white beard, and he's smiling, and he got a handful of lollipops, and he passing them out to everybody and giving them the thumbs up. It ain't going to be like that, right? It says, hallowed ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It comes as a destruction from the Almighty. That's what the day of the Lord is like, right? It's a destruction from the Almighty. It ain't, Jesus coming back and giving everybody hugs and putting them in headlocks and giving them nuggies and stuff like that. No, it ain't doing none of that, right? It says, it shall come to pass as destruction from the Almighty. Therefore, shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt. Meaning, when stuff really hit the fan, when you hear those sirens going off in the neighborhood, that those all night sirens, curfews, right? Military, police patrolling your neighborhood, all that stuff, right? Air raids, all that. We hear all that stuff going on. It says, therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt. Meaning you're going to be scared in that day. You're going to be scared, right? It ain't going to be a pleasant day. Then it says, they shall be afraid of things, so like things and sorrow shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman in travail. They shall be amazed at one another. Their face shall be as flames. Behold, the day of the Lord come cruel, both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners therefore out of it. Right. So, like I said, God is coming back with vengeance. Right. Not giving out hugs, not passing out lollipops, or none of that. He's coming back to kill, right? So that's what we got to get in our brain. And we got to get in our brain that we don't want to be a part of that number that he's coming back to kill. So it says, behold, the day of the Lord cometh. Okay, and it says, the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in its own going, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. I will punish the world for their evil and the wicked for their iniquity. I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and I will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. Right? So this is what he on. And who's more haughty, who's more arrogant, who's more proud than a so-called white man, woman, and child, right? So, and it says, therefore I will shake the heavens, verse 13. Therefore I will shake the heavens and earth and remove out of her place the wrath of the Lord of hosts and in the days of his anger. It shall be as a chaste road, as a sheep that no man taketh up, they shall every man turn to his own people. Meaning, in that day, it says, gonna be like a chaste road. Meaning, you're gonna be like a scared deer, like a deer in the headlights, right? Then it says, and a sheep that no man taketh up, that shall every man turn to his own people, right? So everybody's going to turn to their own people, meaning they're going to stick to their own, right? Because why? Because it's also, during this time, civil war going on, race wars is going on, right? And it says everybody's going to turn to their own people and flee everyone unto his own land. Everyone that is found shall be thrust through. Everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. So like I said, that's why I always say that God is hunting with a shotgun, right? God don't have a sniper rifle. God is riding in a 6-fold low with a shotgun with bullets that go spread out and hit everything that's standing there. So if you want to align yourself with the philosophies of this place called America, join yourself with these people, live your life like these people. He says, what he says? Everyone that is found shall be thrust through. Everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. Their children also shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, their wives ravished. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver as for gold. They should not delight in it, right? Because they don't care about these sanctions, right? America been sanctioning these people since the beginning. It says, hold on 1 second, what's going on here? Just speaking. Oh, well, sure. This says, right here, it says, India attacks sites in Pakistan. That's another thing. That's another ongoing thing, tension between India and Pakistan. And India is part of BRICS, right? So it says India attacks sites in Pakistan, and Pakistani Kashmir citing planned strikes against it. Attacks followed violence against Hindu terrorists in India Kashmir last month. India claims strikes were focused and non-escalatory involving Pakistani military facilities. Pakistan reports casualties, damage, and power outages. Said its response was underway. Tension high between nuclear armed neighbors. India vowed to respond to earlier violence. So you got Pakistan and India. Both of them crazy people got nukes, and they going at it with each other, right? So we'll see what it says over there. It says, and I will stir up the Medes against which regard not silver as for gold, and they shall not delight in it. So these people, and I believe that the Medes is like the ancient Indians too. Matter of fact, right? Because the Persians and the Medes, they ruled together. I don't know, I could be wrong on that. But the point is, even in this article right here, and we see this too, these people don't care about sanctions. America been sanctioning Russia. Russia only got stronger, right? They put sanctions on China. You know, they don't care about that, right? Let's get Obadiah real quick. So Obadiah 1:7 says, all the men that died confederacy have brought thee even unto the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is no understanding in them. Meaning they're not trying to hear none of that sanctioned talk, right? There ain't nothing we can do to stop us from doing what we want to do. You know, we want to go to war with you because you're tripping. We don't like how you've been operating. There's nothing you can do to stop it, right? So that's what it means by which they should not regard silver as their for gold, and they should not delight in it. Meaning, you can't sanction them. You can't bribe them. It's on, it's on site when they see them, right? It says their bows also shall dash young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on fruit or wound. Their eyes shall not spare children, right? Because when those bombs is dropping, we see it on the news, or we can see it on social media. Little children getting, killed in these bombing raids and stuff, right? So when they dropping these bombs and they sitting down, they pushing these buttons, anybody can get it. Women, children, old, young, anybody can get it. So that's why it says that their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall not have pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare the children, right? And we see that now. They over there bombing hospitals and stuff over there. Claiming that, whatever lie they came up with to bomb hospitals where kids is at, or, schools and stuff like that. That's what they doing, right? Let's get, let's get, hold on, let's see. Alright, let's get Isaiah 24, and you start at 17. So it says, fear in the pit and the snare are upon thee, O inhabitants of the earth, right? It says, it shall come to pass that who flee from the noise of the fear shall fall into the pit, right? So God is saying, I'm setting a trap for the people of the earth, right? For you rulers, these elites, I'm setting a trap, because you look back, you see how stuff is going, and you looking like these people is not that bright. It's like, you would think, like, if I was running the show, I could do this a lot better. I don't understand what the problem is, right? When you see what some of these people are doing. Because it looks, like, it looks very easy. Like, hold on, like, shit, I can do this then. If this, the type of decisions you people is making. And it says, fear in the pit is a snare, and upon thee, is upon thee, or inhabitants of the earth. And it shall come to pass that who flee from the noise of the fear shall fall into the pit, and he that come out of the midst of the pit shall be taken in the snare. For the window from the high are open, and the foundations of the earth do shake, right? Meaning there's no escaping this coming destruction to this earth. No matter where you go, you think you done ran over here, you think you're safe, and then this is happening, right? So, like I said, there's no escaping this coming calamity. Is basically what it's saying, right? Let's get Isaiah 34. 6. Says this. So Isaiah 34 and 6 says, "The sword of the Lord is filled with blood. It is made with fat, made with the fatness, and with the blood of the lamb and the goats, and with the fat of the kidneys of the ram. For the Lord hath a sacrifice in Basra, and a great slaughter in the land of Idomia." So that's talking about these peoples, right? These so-called Caucasians. The Basra, Idomia. Idomia is a Greek way of saying Edom, or Edom, Edom, right? And we know Edom is what we would call today the so-called Caucasian people today. Their biblical nationality would be Edom. So yeah, then it says so it says the Lord should so the Lord said he he's gonna have a sacrifice with them, and you know what happens during a sacrifice? Things get killed, in a sacrifice, right? So it's on and popping on site with them. Then it says and it says and it shall come to, and get back to 24 and 18. And it shall come to pass, who flee from the noise of the fear of the pit, and he that come up out of the midst of the pit shall be taken in a snare. For the windows from high are open, and the foundations of the earth do shake. Right? And they're going to be shaken because of that thermonuclear fire, those bombs that blow up and cause seismic activity that's going to cause earthquakes and volcanoes and all other type of natural phenomena, right? Let's get Isaiah 63 real quick. So Isaiah 63 says, "Who is this coming from Edom with dyed garments from Basra? That is glorious in his apparel, traveling in greatness of his strength. I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Therefore art thou red in thy apparel, and thy garments like him that treadeth the wine fat." So he see, Christ coming from, stumping out the so-called Caucasian people, the Edomites, so it says, "Who is this coming from Basra with dyed garments from, let me read it right. Who is this coming from Edom with dyed garments from Basra? That is righteous in his apparel, traveling in his greatness of his strength. I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save." So, like I say, so he sees Christ coming from Basra, because Basra is an ancient city in the land of Edom. So oftentimes too, when you read the Bible, oftentimes it will refer to the people by the landmass that they belong to. Because sometimes in the Bible you would read that they refer to us as Jerusalem, but Jerusalem is a city in Israel, right? But we'll be the Israelites. So so it's talking about Edom, and we know Edom is the modern day so-called Caucasian. So he's seeing a vision of him destroying these group of people, so it says, "Therefore art thou red in thy apparel, and thy garments, and him that treadeth the wine fat. I have trodden the wine press alone, and of all the people there was none with me, for I treaded them in my anger and trampled them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and I will stain my raiment. Right? So Christ was saying, like, I have to handle these wicked devils myself because no other nation, did anything. Like they watched the rape, rob, and murder of the so-called black and Hispanic people, right? They watched it. They did nothing. Nobody put sanctions on America, right? Everybody, America goes around putting sanctions on everybody that they want to put sanctions on. But when America start kidnapping people and bringing them over here, nobody said, hey, just sanction America. Why are America doing this to these people? Just sanction them. They didn't do that. Instead, they participated, right? So that's why he said, I had trotted the winepress alone, meaning he did it himself. Then when you read it in other translations, it tells you that he was amazed and looked around and seen like nobody was doing anything to aid us. So he had to do it. So he says, I had trotted the winepress alone, and the people there was none with me. For I will tread them in my anger and trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and I will stain all my raiment. Right? So that's what Christ is coming back to do. He's not coming back to hand out hugs and lollipops and all that stuff. He's coming back to take vengeance on the people that caused destruction to his people. Right? That's what he's coming back to do. Right? Luke 1:68 all the way down to 72. Right? That's what he's coming to do. Right? So, let's get back to it. Let's get Amos 5:19 real quick. So it says, if a man did flee from a lion, because that's how it's going to be in that day. Like in that day, when all hell is breaking loose, total destruction, right? This is exactly how it's going to be. It says, if a man did flee from a lion and a bear met him or went into a house and leaned his hand on a wall and the serpent bit him, right? So it's going to be so terrible in that day. It's going to be such a slim chance that you're able to escape destruction. It's going to be similar to it. Like I said, a man fleeing from a lion. You run from a lion. You get away from the lion. You're resting. Now you find you a bear. And then you run from the bear. You run into a house. Then now you're in a house and there's a poisonous snake in there. Right? That's how it's going to be. It's going to be very difficult in that day. That's why we need the Most High Yahweh to protect us. Because it's going to be tough. It ain't going to be how people think it's going to be when, how they show it, like God coming back, it's like rainbows in the sky and music playing and angels singing and stuff like that and God smiling. No, it ain't gonna be like that, right? Total destruction, right? Then it says, verse 19, it says, the earth is utterly broken down, the earth is clean dissolved, the earth is moved exceedingly. How? Because the thermonuclear bombs, right? When they go off, like I said, they got stronger nuclear weapons than they had in the 40s, right? And 100 times stronger, right? Like I said, they got stuff that can take out, not just cities. They got stuff that can take out states, right? Depending on what part of the United States they hit, they could take out the whole East Coast. If they hit the tri-state area, the whole East Coast is over with, right? If they hit California, the whole West Coast is over with, right? That's the type of bombs they got now, right? So that's why it says, the earth is utterly broken down, the earth is clean dissolved, the earth is moved exceedingly, right? Because like I said, when that stuff, when that stuff blows up, it's gonna melt everything, right? Let's get before we go there, think it's here. Yeah, okay, yeah. So this is 2 Peter 3:10, right? Because going off of this, it says, all right, I got my pen over. But it says, the earth is utterly broken down, the earth is clean dissolved, and the earth is moved exceedingly. The 2 Peter says, New Testament, right? 2 Peter says, but the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens shall pass away in a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat, right? Just like how it says over here, the earth is clean dissolved, meaning it's gonna, that heat that is released from those nuclear bombs melt elements. It breaks things down to the common denominator. You know, they got the little meme, you know, things on the social media like, yeah, what if you get jumped by a nerd and they say, let's break this person down to the common denominator. That's what these bombs do. They're gonna break things down to the common denominator, to the dango atom. They're gonna melt it all the way down to that. It says, but the day of the Lord come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise. Talking about them bombs blowing up. And the elements, meaning everything we see, because everything we know and see and touch is made out of elements. The elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth shall also, and the works therein shall be burnt up. So everything you see, you know, and love will be burnt up here in these great United States, right? Because the Lord says so. And over here it says, the earth is utterly broken down, and the earth is clean dissolved. The earth is moved exceedingly, right? And that's what's going to happen when this whole thing kicks off. And it's Revelation 9:18 says, by these three was the third part of men killed, right? So when these bombs go off, it says a third part of men will be killed, right? It says, by these three was the third part of men killed by fire and by smoke and by brimstone, which issue out of their mouths, right? It's talking about the airplanes, you know, that's delivering these bombs and stuff. You know, this chapter 9 in Revelation is getting into the different wars and stuff. You know, World War II and World War III, etc. when you read chapter 9. So it's telling you that it says a third part, by these a third part of man was killed by fire and by smoke and by brimstone, which issue out their mouths. So, again, so when we read over here in Isaiah where it says, the earth is utterly broken down, the earth is clean dissolved, the earth is moved exceedingly. It's talking about thermonuclear fire, thermonuclear war. That's what it's talking about. But pastor's not telling you this because pastor want to sing and dance and get your money and tell you a feel-good story, but he's not reading what the Bible is telling you what's actually coming, right? And we need to know what's coming because a lot of us don't know. But we want to know, what we want to know is, can 100 dudes fight a gorilla? That's what we want to know, right? But we don't want to know what's actually going on, right? And these churches, they take advantage of the people not wanting to know what's going on. They thrive in the fact that people don't want to know what's going on, right? It's a war going on outside. No man is safe. It's going down out there. And it's only going to get worse, right? It says the earth shall reel, verse 20, it says the earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and it shall be removed like a cottage, and the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it, and it shall fall and not rise again. So America would never be great again. Never ever be great. There's no such thing as a MAGA. A MAGA is a damn idea that sounds cool to people that believe in it. Because it says this It says, it shall fall and not rise again. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall punish the host of the host of the high ones that are on high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth. And they shall be gathered together as prisoners, and gathered in a pit, and shall be shut up in prison. After many days they shall be visited. Meaning, they're gonna be destroyed, right? And that's what's happening. Just get what else do I want? Get that. Let's get. Let's get Jeremiah real quick. Jeremiah 50 and 22. So Jeremiah 50 and 22 says, a sound of battle is in the land and of great destruction. And that's what's happening. A sound of battle is in the land, because when you turn on the news, everywhere you look at, you hear a potential war breaking out, potential this. And we just, I just read about India and Pakistan. We so focused on Israel and Hamas and Ukraine and Russia. It's India and Pakistan. Also, I was telling, I made a post like a few months ago that I believe, get it right, I think it's globally, there's like over 50 something global conflicts going on right now as we speak. That's what world war look like, right? But we only talk about Hamas and Russia and them, because those are the main characters, the popular ones. But all over the country, people are fighting each other for whatever reason that they fighting each other for, right? So it says, a sound of battle is in the land, and great destruction. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How is Babylon become desolate among the nations? Because that's what's going to happen to America. It's going to become desolate. And that's what these surviving nations are going to be looking back, at America like, dang, how did that happen to them? How did they fall like that? It was this great, powerful nation and all this stuff. How did they fall like that? That's how these other nations are going to be looking at this place. And it says, how is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? And why is it calling them the hammer? Because America has that military power that stretches all over the earth. They have military bases in almost every country you can think of. So they are the hammer around the earth. I believe they have the fastest response time, military-wise, when it comes to conflicts. Like if there's a conflict going on around the world, they need to get there. They have the fastest response time because their bases are scattered all over, right? So it says, how has the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How has Babylon become desolate among the nations, right? And how is they become desolate? Because they messed around and found out. Let's get good. Zephaniah 1 and 18, I think. It says, neither, Zephaniah 1 and 18. We're going to read all these things. It says, neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the day of the Lord's wrath, but the whole land shall be devoured by fire of his jealousy, for he shall make even a speedy radiance of them that dwell in the land. right? So God ain't playing with these people, right? He gonna, clean them up real quick, right? Using Russia, India, and China, the BRICS squad, right? Let's get Isaiah 54. I think that's what I want. So Isaiah 54, yeah. So Isaiah 54 and 16 says, "Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals of the fire." Right? So meaning in modern times, God created that scientist, that nuclear biologist, that physicist to create these weapons, these devices, right? To go kaboom, right? So it says, says, "Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth the instrument for his work. I have created the waster to destroy." What is the waster? That is the nuclear weapon. God created the nuclear weapon to destroy. And he created the minds of the people to build it. That's why he says, "Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire." That's talking about your scientists, your nuclear biologists, your people that put all this stuff together to say, "Hey, just make a weapon." Those people. He says, "I have created the smith to blow the coal in the fire, that bringeth forth a instrument for his work. And I have created the waster." So that's what he does. He created these weapons, right? And he created, you know, the waster to destroy. So that's what it's gonna do, right? Um, let's get let's get let's get Revelation 12 real quick. Revelation 12 and 7. And it says, "And there was war in heaven, and Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon was fought with his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found no more in heaven." Right? So now, we already broke this down before, but we're going to do it again. So it's not talking about the spiritual demon, Satan and Michael fighting. The dragon is the Roman Empire, right? So-called, in this context, it would be the modern day Roman Empire, NATO, and the EU. Then it says that Michael fought against his angels and prevailed not, meaning in heaven is, biblically speaking, because remember we went over these terminologies. Typically when heaven is being referred to as people or to a nation, it's talking about dominion and rulership and kingdomship. So meaning that the so-called white man, the so-called Caucasian, they're not going to have no more dominion on this earth no more. It's no more. They're not going to have no more rulership, dominion. That's why it says that their place in heaven was found no more. So not meaning heaven up there where God dwells at, because to really think that an all-powerful being that created everything got problems with something up there is just crazy to think about. Because that's just not true. That's what you would call Greek mythology or Roman mythology. That's not in the Bible. The devil and God is not fighting each other, and they be mean mugging when they see each other on the street. They don't do that, right? It don't happen like that, right? So in this context, heaven is talking about dominionship and rulership. So it's saying that their rulership would not be found no more, because they're going to be taken down. Like we read earlier, that the new kingdom that's going to be set up is going to rule forever, and it's not going to be given to other people, meaning it's not going to be, okay, well, one day the Babylonians is in power. Then okay, next day the Persians in power. Then all of a sudden the Greeks in power. It's not going to be like that. Once Christ is on this planet ruling, it's not going to be a change of guard, right? It's just going to be that forever and ever, right? And it says, where are you at? All right, so then, and it said, boom, boom, boom. All right, back to it. Then it says, I had laid a snare for thee, and thou, and also taken, O Babylon, and thou was, because thou hast strived against the Lord. The Lord hath opened his armory, and have brought forth the weapons of his imagination, for this is the works of the Lord God of hosts in the land of the Chaldeans. Come against her from utmost borders, open her storehouses, and cast up heaps, and destroy her utterly. Let nothing of her be left. Right? So God was like, look, all you nations, because like I said, you read it in a different translation for time's sake. Just gonna read it in the KJV. Basically saying like, all you nations, bring all your weapons, all you got, load up, and come to war, for we can take these people out, right? So whatever you got, bring it to the fight. Then let's get his second Esdras in 16. It says, for the strong is his right hand that bendeth the bow, and his arrows that shooteth are sharp and shall not miss when they begin to shoot unto the ends of the world. So yeah, so this is, like I said, it's getting into their nuclear capabilities. Because it says, strong is his right hand that bendeth the bow, and his arrows that shooteth are sharp and shall not miss when they begin to shoot unto the ends of the world. So again, the prophet Esdras, he don't live in our time, so he's he have to liken these missiles to arrows, to what he that's what he can look at it as. So, and like we read, like how what was that? I think it was I forgot what nation was trying to they want to get the Iron Dome and stuff like that because they don't want to get attacked by Russia. They want to improve their nuclear their missile capability, defense capability, and all that. So, but the Bible tells you that no arrow is going to miss. That they're going to hit their mark. No Iron Dome, no whatever the missile defense system America called itself over here got. None of that stuff is going to work. Because think about it, America supposed to have the greatest missile defense system, right? Several months ago, they what was like. China was flying their little spy balloons over here, halfway across the country. Then you had over there the so-called drones and, stuff, people saying that they seeing and all that, even though I think they came out and said that, it was theirs, it belonged to America, but I don't know. But the point is, the missile defense system ain't that defining if they, letting things slip in like that. And then, like I said, and the Bible tells you that this place is going to be destroyed, and there's nothing they can do about it. So who are we going to believe, right? I choose to believe what the book says. So it says, "Behold, the plagues are sent, and shall not return again until they come upon the earth. The fire is kindled and shall not be put out until it consume the foundation of the earth. Like an arrow which is shot of a mighty archer returneth not backwards. Even so the plagues that shall be sent upon the earth shall not return again." So God says, it is what it is. And, I said what I said, and I'm not changing my mind. I'm destroying this place with fire. And I'm using the bricks wide to do it. Then it says, woe is me, who will deliver me in those days? So this is, Prophet Ezra seeing this vision of this war, this nuclear war, and he's seeing this vision that the angel was giving him. He's like, dang, how I'm going to be saved in this day? This is a terrible day. So even a righteous man, Ezra, was scared of the day of the Lord, right? So you got these church people that are like, oh, I can't wait till I go see Jesus. However that song go. Till I go see Jesus. Everybody, talking about, oh, I can't wait to see the Lord. But here's this righteous man that's getting a glimpse of the day of the Lord, and he says to the angel, woe is me, who will deliver me in those days? Meaning, like, I don't want to be living when that stuff happened. That stuff is crazy. Who's going to make it out, right? So, the beginning of sorrow and great murmuring, and the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of war and power shall stand in fear, and the beginning of evil. What shall I do when these evils shall come? So that's what Ezra is asking, like, man, like, what should I do when all this evil come? And again, this is Prophet Ezra's, a righteous man, still in fear of the day of the Lord, right? So, it's a terrible day, right? We just hoping that we on the right side of the things when they go down. Right? There was a verse I was thinking about. Let me see. Maybe if I read this again, it'll come to. It says, "Behold the throne. For strength is in his right hand. Behold, he bendeth the bow." Hold on. Kindle the fire. I don't know what come to me though. It was a verse that popped in my head. But anyway, so it says, "Come against her from the utmost border, open the storehouse, cast her up as heaps, and destroy her utterly. Let nothing be left," right? And that's how it's gonna be in that day, This place will be utterly destroyed. Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. Then it says, so this is Jeremiah 33, 50 and 33. It says, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captive hold them fast, and they refused to let them go." And that's where we at. We here in this Babylon being oppressed together. That's, another way how we know that the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American people are the Israelites, because we know, biblically speaking, America is Mystery Babylon, the daughter of Babylon, right? Spiritually Egypt and Sodom. We know these things. So, and we know history that the Israelites, only time that the Israelites were like being oppressed together technically was when they were in Egypt together. But then as they came out of Egypt and, and go through history, they went into slavery at different times. So the Northern Kingdom went into slavery, before the Southern Kingdom did. So they wasn't never going through oppression at the same time. But here in these Americas, we go to oppression at the same time, the black and brown. So it says, thus said the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them hold them captive and held them fast, and they refused to let them go. And that's why we're still stuck here in America. You know, they refuse to let us go. You know, okay, they let us off the plantation, but we're still walking around in a yard. You know, like when that stuff happened to those Jewish people over there in Germany, they got those people out of there. They didn't keep them over there in Germany. They said, hey, just go steal a land. Just go find a land for these people to be at. Because they can't stay over there because this is such a tragedy and so horrible what happened to these people. They cannot, the psychological damage of being around these people that did this to them is so horrible. We got to get them out of there. They got them out of there. But here it says that, it says, all them that held them fast refused to let them go. Right? So they're not gonna let us go. You know, like I said, if we all decide to get up and leave, they will stop us. Let's see, what else we want? Hold on one second. Lucky. Yeah. So that they won't let us go, right? Just get let's go to what I want. Let's go to Ezekiel. You're gonna end it with Ezekiel. Let's go to Ezekiel 38. Ezekiel 38, right? So it says in the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog in the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against him. So this is speaking about Russia. So Russia is Magog is an ancient name for the capital of Russia, which would be Moscow, right? Gog is like how we would say prince or president, or modern day times we'll say president, leader, ruler, whatever, right? So that's what Gog is. So it says, so son of man, set thy face against Gog in the land of Magog, and the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesied against them. So this is talking about the Soviet Union region, right? The whole Turkey, Ukraine, Crimea, all that stuff in the mix, right? That's what it's talking about. So it says, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth in all thy armies, horses and horsemen, and all them clothed with all sorts of armor, with great company, with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. So like, I'm going to bring you back into that Soviet mind state. I'm going to put you back into that USSR mind state, right? That Cold War mind state, that us against the world mind state, mind state, right? That's why they start going into Crimea, you know, about 10 years or so ago, right? They start going into, you know, Ukraine and all that. You know, Poland is feeling threatened. You know, Hungary, Turkey, all these different countries is feeling a little threatened because Russia want their country back. Russia want they land back. So after the USSR broken up, all these little these different nations, they sprung up out of that. You got the Ukrainians, you got all these different people, and it was once all Russia, and Russia like, you know, these my peoples. You know what I'm saying? I want my family back, right? So Russia is trying to bring back that Soviet Union, that bring back the USSR thing, right? That's what he's trying to do. So it says, I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth and all thy army, horses and men, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Meaning you're going to put them back in that military mind. Like Tupac said, military minded. Says Persian, Ethiopia, and Libya with them. All of them with shields and helmets. So then Persia is the ancient name for Iran, right? And that is a big major player in this whole thing, Iran, right? And it's all on the news, everywhere. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya, with all of them with shields and helmets, meaning these countries are going to be ready to fight. This is the BRICS squad right here, right? This is the BRICS. And what they're, then it says Gomer, which is Turkey, because Turkey, like I said, they're on the schedule to join with the BRICS, even though they're EU, and they're supposed to be, with the EU, but they're on schedule to join with the BRICS, and they already still doing dealings with Russia. So that's why we read in Daniel about the split of this final kingdom, the 10 toes being split, and that's going to be their destruction because they're not together, right? So Gomer, which is Turkey, and all his bands in the houses of Tomograph in the north quarters, all his bands and many people with thee. Be prepared and prepare thyself. Talking to Russia, telling Russia be prepared and be prepared and prepare yourself. And it says, thou and thy company that are assembled unto thee. So all your little brick squad people that's with you, right? It says, company that are assembled unto thee, be thou a guard unto them. So, meaning Russia, protect your allies, protect your Iranian friends, protect your Korean friends, protect your little Chinaman friend, right? Be a guard to them. So that's why Russia is always, if you just follow along, right? Watch the news. Russia always going to be in the mix of stuff, whether it got something to do with them in Ukraine, but outside of that, because God put a charge on Russia. It says, and thou be a guard unto them, right? So God is putting that spirit on Russia to be a protector to these other nations that's under the BRICS, right? And so yeah, so he's putting that spirit on. That's why you look on the news, you see them making these deals with Iran and Korea and all that stuff. You see all these deals that they're making and these military pacts that they're coming up with each other, right? Because back then, to the prophet Ezekiel, God told Russia to be a guard to them, protect these people, right? Hold on one second. So yeah, there we go. It's Zechariah. Yeah, Zechariah 1:18, right? So this is Zechariah 1:18. So this is the brick squad, right? Because the brick squad is in the Bible. We ain't talking about Gucci Man and them. We talking about the real brick squad, the real Pooh Shiesty. So it says, lift up. Then I lifted up my eyes and I saw, and behold, 4 horns. The 4 horns, that's the brick squad, right? This is before it became BRICS, because now they added South Africa. But it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, right? Four carpenters, right? Then their underlings that come with it. So it says, I lifted up my eyes and I saw, and behold, four horns. Four horns. Okay, get it right. Four horns is America, Britain, France, and Spain. Okay, get that right. So erase what I just said for the last 30 seconds. So four carpenters is America, Britain, France, and Spain, right? So it says, I lifted up my eyes and I saw, and behold, the four horns, and I said unto the angel that talked with me, what be these? And he answered me, and these are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. So this would be Britain, Spain, France, and America that scattered the tribe of Judah and Jerusalem. How did they do it? Through the transatlantic slave trade. That's how we got scattered throughout these four corners of the earth. So these four horns, these four nations that participated in the Atlantic slave trade, they scattered us, right? Then it says, and I said unto the angel that talked with me, what be these? And he answered me, these are the four horns which scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. And the Lord showed me four carpenters. Okay, now this is the carpenters. So it says, and the Lord showed me four carpenters, which will be Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And then I said, what come these to do? And he spake, saying, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, so that no man did lift up his head. So that's what happened. They scattered Judah and destroyed the so-called African American people, to the point where we walk around with our hats in our lap and our heads down and say, yes, sir, boss, and yes, sir, master, and oh, no, sir, boss, oh, yes, sir, no, sir, boss. We talk like that to these people now, right? We don't lift up our head. We don't look them in the eye when we talk to them, right? That's what it means by that. No man lifted up their head, meaning nobody stood up to these people to do something, because whenever we did, they killed our leaders, right? So now we don't even do anything about it. Now we just sit back and just, all right, because every time somebody come up, they kill them. So it says, with scattered Judah, so no man did lift up his head, but these are come to fray them, to cast out the horns of the Gentiles, which lifted up their horns over the land of Judah, to scatter it. So God is going to use the brick sword, or I like calling it brick sword, to destroy this Western empire, and that's going to correlate to our salvation from these people and from the oppression of these Americas. And I know we got some Uncle Tom, some house Negroes that this one is this cling to this place called America, want to cling to Master, and want to say, oh no, what do you mean? Master's not gonna, what? No, we can't. We got a bunch of Stevens around here. Was a dude named from Django's Samuel Jackson character. We got a bunch of Stevens around here, right? But this is what the Bible says. It says, but these are come to fray them, to cast out the horns of the Gentiles, which lift up their horn over Judah, to scatter it. Meaning that in the destruction of this Western Empire, like I said, that's going to correlate to our liberation, right? But like I said, a lot of us are so embedded in this society, we can't see ourselves without America. We don't want to live. Like it says in the second Exodus. Not second Exodus. In the Exodus, when you read about the Exodus, a lot of our people was, we left out of Egypt. We saw all the miracles that God did. We walking in the wilderness, seeing all the miracles. And we still wanted to go back to Egypt and and just did, other stuff that, but we watching it, eyewitness accounts, seeing God do what he do, right? And they still did that, right? So this is what we're dealing with. So, so we got those Uncle Toms that's going to be so connected, and they ain't going to get it. So that's why we read the other verse that says, who would be joined with them, you're gonna face the same consequences. Let's see what else. Boom, boom, boom. I have to talk about the 4 things. Well, we don't need to get into, because we already kind of went into the 4 different things before. But, so yeah, the point is, when you see these things, just know that this is all for the liberation of the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American people. The destruction of this place is our liberation, right? And because that's the only thing that's going to be able to fix everything here, because these people are not planning on fixing nothing, right? And we shouldn't expect them to fix anything or, do anything about what we think should be done, because nobody will give up their power, a rulership just to be equal or less than somebody else. Nobody would do that. So why would we expect them to give up their power that they established for the last 400-500 years just to be equal with us or less than? You think they're going to do that? You really think they're going to do that? I mean, would you do that? You wouldn't do that. So why would they do that? So for us to think that after 500 years we walking around talking about no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace. You think they're going to do something they like? They think it's a nice song, really, right? They can care less of fixing anything that you think they should fix, because in their mind, everything is cool. It's going just how it's supposed to go, right? So to expect them to fix something that you yourself won't fix, if you was in that predicament, if you had total control, total autonomy over a nation of people, why would you give that up? You wouldn't give that up. If you have a house, you got your house, and somebody comes into your house, you're not going to just sign your deed to them and say, hey, you run everything now, this is your house. You wouldn't do that, because you done paid the house off. You paid the mortgage. You paid whatever that you need to pay to get that house. So here come this person. You're not going to say, well, hey, we now share this house now. It doesn't work like that. So we have to be practical. And we don't be practical when we think about these things a lot of times. We think these people are just going to just be like, oh, well, you're right. You're very right. We've been very bad people, and we're going to just, you know what, how much we owe you? How much you say we owe you again? That's what we think we're going to do, that they're going to do. No. This is Luke 168. It says, blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he had visited and redeemed his people. For he had raised up a horn of salvation for us, for the house of his servant David. He spake by the mouth of his holy prophets, which he has been since the beginning, since the world began, that we should be saved. What is salvation? That we should be saved from our enemies. That's what we need to be saved from these people. That's why God brought this whole thing together for Yahweh Shai, who the world calls Jesus Christ, to come save us from our enemies. What did it say? That we should be saved from our enemies, from the hand of all that hate us. Because these people hate us, right? They hate us. I'm let somebody sucker me into joining this little Republican Donald Trump little Facebook group thing. I did it because I like to just see what people be talking about. These people are racist. So, um, what? Yeah. So it was a little topic thing, right? So, they're talking about long story short, this lady said that white people are very dangerous and all that stuff, right? And white people in America are very dangerous. And I just comment like, that's right. So then, my profile picture they can't see, I guess, because I got my logo. Um, so and it's just like the conversation without going too long winded about it. Um, my defense for black people was a red flag for them, where they questioned my ethnicity. Like, are you a white man? Are you a white guy? Like, you don't seem like you're white. So, just the nature of the conversation is like, these people, if they, they're gonna mark you as a as not like us, or not like that, as not one of them, if you don't share the same talking points as them, right? And I'm not talking about just because that group is a so-called Republican Donald Trump thing. I'm talking about generally speaking too. Because I have stories where this regular people, I'm dealing with, where I'm able to see white supremacy work. Because a lot of times we don't see it at work. We feel it, but we don't see it at work. So, and just that nature of the conversation, I immediately thought, like, that means basically what you people are saying, that for me to identify as a white person, I have to feel this way and say these things. Then soon, if I don't feel this way or say these things, then I get questioned on what's my ethnicity. Of course, I told them I'm not no damn stinky, pinky, smelly, pasty face, right? Yeah. But it's just amazing, like, and I tell y'all all the time, and y'all, I'm telling you, anybody that claim they got a white friend, I did this the other day. I got a white friend, if you want to call it that. I tell you all the time, if you got a so-called white friend or somebody that you think is cool with you, ask them, what does justice look like for black people? Of all the stuff that happened throughout the ages of time, what does justice really look like for black people? Ask them, what do white people talk about when there's no black people around? What is the conversation is about black people when there's no black people around? If they really your friend, they will give you some answers to that. And guess what? I've been asking that question for at least 8 years. Nobody gave me an answer yet, right? To my so-called white friends. Nobody gave me an answer to those questions yet, right? And I've been asking those same questions for about a good 8 years. What does justice look like for black people? Right? What do white people talk about when there's no black people around? What is the conversations like? Right? Which white people are dangerous and don't have black interests at heart? Because you have the so-called white people that claim to be allies, and they're your friends, they hang out with you, but it's like, I never in my life ever seen one of those so-called cool white people randomly, and I say this on purpose, randomly come up to me and say, hey, you see that white guy over there? Stay away from them. They're dangerous, they're racist, they're this, they're that, they're this and that. They don't warn you about the so-called racists, but they will get with you and talk about racist people. Like, oh, yeah, that person's racist. Yeah, that person's racist. Yeah, I don't like him. He's racist. But they're able to be in between. And they hear those conversations. They know what their families say. They know what other people that look like them say. But yet they don't tell you, hey, stay away from, like, if you at work and they don't tell you, hey, you know, such and such really don't like you. You know, they don't use their powers for good. Like I was teasing with my white friend, and like I said, I say that term loosely. I was teasing with him. I'm like, look, you've been on the inside for a while now. Tell me what you got. Are the whites planning on attacking soon? Yes or no? When are the whites planning on attacking? Right? That's what I asked him. So, you know, of course I was kind of joking with the question, but we ended up having somewhat of a conversation. So, the point is, you know, you got to be able to have these conversations with your so-called white friend, right? And we don't. And like I said, so I'm like, if you want to be an ally, you have to, you know. So it's funny because like the whole point of me bringing that up. So I was the gist of the thing was me, you know, treating him like he's a Donnie Brasco or something, right? Like he's working on the cover, and he's supposed to be reporting back to me, telling me what the whites is doing. Right? And jokingly, but then he, you know, just end up hitting me with a bunch of, you know, little threads about stuff that these people are doing. Right? And so not to say that he's you know, I kind of joke with him. I'm like, good job. You're one of the good ones, right? But of course he's not one of the good ones. Ain't no such thing. But the point is, we have to have these conversations. And so then the ones that you think you be trusting and it's cool, they don't be cool as you think they is cool. Because the Bible says never trust your enemy, because sure as iron rust, sure as they ways. Meaning they can be cool as long as they can be cool for, but it's going to be a point in time where that devil is going to come out, because the Bible said it was, right? So it says, blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he has visited and redeemed his people, and he has risen up a horn of salvation for us, for the house of his servant David, as he has spake to the mouth of his holy prophets, which been since the world began, that we should be saved from our enemies and from the hand of all them that hate us, to perform the mercy promised to our fathers, to redeem his holy covenant, right? So that's what it is. We got to be saved from these people, because these people are relentless, right? They would not stop. They like the Terminator. They don't sleep. They don't eat. They don't stop. They can't stop, won't stop, right? They like Puff Daddy. They can't stop, won't stop, right? They won't stop. And they're not going to stop till a black man by the name of Yahweh Shai, who the world mistakenly called Jesus Christ, come through and put some order in it. So, one more verse. Matthew 1:21. It says, and she shall bring forth a son, and she shall call his name Yahweh Shai, for he shall save his people. Who was Jesus going to save? His people from their sins, right? So that's what Yahweh Shai is coming to do, to save his people from their sins. And we just read in Luke that he's coming to save us from our enemies. And we just been reading all through this whole thing of how that looks like when he come and destroy these nations for what they did to us, right? So with that, I'm going to say shalom, peace. Hopefully that was edifying. You know, we're going to get more into this whole World War III. I can't talk right now. World War III thing is going down. And we're just going to stay up on these prophecies and, you know, watch. And try to keep, you know, not try, but keep the commandments. Keep the faith unto death, or to Christ crack the sky, so we can get up out of here. So I'm going to say shalom, peace. I'm out. Hopefully that was edifying. Shalom.